welcome to Fire Service Warrior. We're going to try and get this video in an instant thunderstorm here, so hopefully the sound quality stays pretty good. As you all have seen, we've been doing some pretty interesting stuff. Brian's been rolling out some awesome training stuff. What we wanted to do today was take a minute and talk about some of our mindfulness topics. And we've talked about a whole bunch of things in the past. We've talked about meditation, we've talked about visualization, we've talked about using that mental gamesmanship to prepare yourself for the challenges of the Fireground. One of the other things that we really believe in is studying for this trade by looking at topics outside of the fire service. It's really easy to sit down and read fire engineering, or read another one of the trade magazines, or read some of the online journal articles, or dig into an issue of Urban Firefighter, or check out a blog post. Those are things that we find pretty easy to do. They're relevant, they're applicable to what we do. We can usually find that little nugget of tactical information that we've been looking for. But if we really want to be students of how to excel on the Fireground, I believe we need to look outside of the fire service for ideas, for thoughts. So take a look at what's on your bookshelf. If you don't have much of a bookshelf, take a look at what's at your local library. What could you be reading? One of the books that Brian and I have both been heavily into of late and we think is a great read for anybody in the fire service is the book Deep Survival by Gonzalez. It really explains how human beings think in survival scenarios. Another book that I can't say enough about is On Combat by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, which is a great exploration of how our bodies respond physiologically and psychologically under high threat, high stress moments. Another good book that Lieutenant Colonel Grossman was a co-author on was a book called Warrior Mindset by Dr. Michael Askin. Dr. Askin is a psychologist with the Pennsylvania State Police and has written some really amazing articles and some really informative pieces, not just in police journals, but also in Firehouse Magazine for a while. So he's got a pretty good understanding of what we do in the fire service. Dig into these other books. Look for things outside of the typical day-to-day firefighter story, journal article. All of these things have ideas that we can bring in. The reality is there's very little money spent researching firefighters in our operating environment when we compare ourselves to some of the other high-threat trades that are out there, like law enforcement and the military. Things are getting better. We have the money that UL has done to study the Fireground. We have the money that NIST has spent to do the staffing studies. The University of Illinois, Illinois Fire Service Institute, my colleagues down there are continuing to do a phenomenal job of conducting heat stress research, as well as some of the studies that have come out of Harvard and a couple of the other pretty prestigious medical schools that have done some really interesting work into the effects of elevated heart rates, body core temperatures, and all of that on firefighters. But again, all of those have come back to trying to understand why we have so many heart attacks. Where we haven't spent a lot of time is the thought process piece. How do we lay that solid foundation so that our folks learn how to thrive on the Fireground and we can really forge that excellence that we're looking for? So go out there, find a good new book. Spend a couple of hours. Right now, I'm rereading Deep Survival for some research, and I'm reading a book, biography of Karl von Clausewitz, who was a Prussian general who worked his way up and wrote one of the most seminal publications on military theory ever, called On War. On War is a pretty daunting book to read because it's translated from German into English and written with a 18th century language to it. But when you start getting into reading about the man who wrote it, you begin to understand some more about the thoughts, the ideas, the practices. Another great book that's out there that should be flying off people's shelves right now is Specops, Case Studies in Special Operations Warfare Theory and Practice by William Mcraven. Admiral Mcraven is currently the head of the Joint Special Operations Command that we've heard so much about lately, that units like SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force belong to. He has been nominated to replace Admiral Eric Olson as the head of the U.S. Special Operations Command. Admiral Mcraven wrote this book when he was a commander and in charge of SEAL Team 3, and it's an absolutely phenomenal book. It will give you ideas about how to apply Fireground tactics in a new way and with a new attitude. So that's it. That's our message for this week. Get out there, find a good new book, spend some time, dig into it, and comment on this post with what you're reading. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue to explore some of the ideas that Brian's been working on with Search. We're going to explore some new ideas about why firefighting actually is a critically important function that we must do and we must excel at. So that's some of the things that are on deck. Hope you have a great week. Cheers.